Hi everybody, this video is to show you how to use Illuminate, the new online assessment and assessment analysis program the district just purchased. So the first thing you're going to need to do is go to the website, emuhsd.illuminate, and then ed for education, so illuminateed.com. And once you go there, it'll take you to the sign-in page. And we're not going to bother with any of this here. We're actually going straight to sign in with Google because we're going to use our district Google accounts. So you just click the red sign in with Google button. I suggest you use Chrome because for a couple of reasons actually, but one reason being is if you're already logged into the browser like I am, it will just automatically take you in. Otherwise, the very first time you go in, you'll just put your credentials, first name, last name, at emuhsd.org, and then your district password that you use for Google. So the first thing that will happen when you log in, it's going to take you to this dashboard page. The dashboard is just really just kind of like a quick visual of certain things, and you can add different things you want to see on your dashboard all through here. So let's just say I want to see my students' birthdays, so I know when any of my students have a birthday coming up, I can add that widget. It's going to actually add it at the very bottom, and I can drag it wherever I want to put it. So I'm just going to drag it up here. Maybe I want it there. And then the other thing is if you want to get rid of anything, you just press the X on it, and you can get rid of things on your dashboard. So it's just kind of a quick place to look for things and see what's going on. Okay, another little area I want to show you is your control panel over here. This is where you come to log out when you're done. And there's also a help section where they have many lessons and videos that can explain to you how to do certain things, as in creating assessments, analyzing your assessments, looking at reports, things like that. So everything you could probably think of is in here, aside from what I'm going to show you. I just need to change something really quick on my account. Yours is always going to be my students because that's the teacher account. So I'm going to go switch to the teacher account here. So we have the dashboard, the control panel, and then these are the three main areas. We have students, reports, and assessments. The students, you can search your students. It'll show you different things about them, like demographics. When there's more data in here, right now there's not really a whole lot of data, but when there's more data, you'll be able to pull up standardized assessments. There's only data from last year in here, so you have last year's Casey, last year's SBAC, last year's CELT in here. So there's still not going to be a whole lot, but when you're on the student, if you've looked up a student, you want to go to the quick nav, and that takes you through the different things you can look at regarding the student. The student profile is probably the most useful, so you could look at a student profile and just kind of get some basic information about that student and how they've tested. I have her test results hidden right now for her privacy, but you'll see there's class schedule and other things like that. Okay, and then also if they've taken a test in your class, which she didn't really take this test, I did it as a sample, so that's not really her score, but the test that you've given will also show up down here for your students, so you kind of get a snapshot of how they've been doing. The other thing I wanted to point out about when you're looking at a student, it kind of gives you a basic look at what their profiles look like. So if Carla logged into an Illuminate account that was given her, she would have a dashboard. She would have some assessments. If you assigned some online tests for her to take, she would go there, and that's how she would take the test online. And then she would see the grades that she would have in her classes, and also the grade book would show each of the online assessments or tests that have been graded on here and what grades she's got on those. So the students do have accounts, and this kind of gives you a little brief look at what their accounts look like, which is kind of nice. All right, so that's the basics on students, and you really probably don't need to look at much else regarding that. As far as reports go, at this time, you're probably only going to be interested in maybe looking at some of the pre-built reports that are in here, and like I said, there's still not a whole lot of data in here yet. The district still has to load in a lot of past data, but if you wanted to look at some Casey results from last year or some SBAC results, but it is only going to show you your students. So if last year's Casey's results would be for this year's juniors. So if you have juniors, you can see how they did on the Casey. If you have seniors, you can see how they did on the SBAC last year. So you kind of, it's really limited right now, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. The last one is assessments, and this is what we're going to get into in depth in the next few sessions. But this is where there'll be a list of all the assessments you've made once you start developing them, uploading some or creating some and putting them in here. You'll have your own list of your own assessments. You have the ability to create new ones as you go along. And then there's different ways to create them. There is an item bank where you can create a test from questions that have already been developed. And then you can just print answer sheets in general, like answer sheets on the fly for a quick quiz you give in class. The quiz can even be verbal. It doesn't matter, but you can have an answer sheet for it and scan the results really quickly. So there's lots of features here under assessments that we are going to look at more in depth. But I'll just show you a quick little overview of one of the ones I already have. So I created a little Dewey quiz, which I didn't actually give, but I bubbled some samples out of my students. So when I click on that, since I've already given it, supposedly, although it was just samples, it tells me how students did overall in the quiz. All my students did poorly because I did not bubble the right answers. And then it breaks it down by question here as well. And then there's also some other things we can do with the assessment that I'll get into more detail in the next few tutorials. But those are kind of the basics. And you see that anytime you're on a new section, you get all these extra tabs of more in-depth things that you can do with the information. So, but for now, you have your dashboard, you have your control panel, and you have a little brief overview about what each of these things here are. And that's all we're doing for getting to know your Illuminate. So now we can sign out.